Are you afraid of death? Does the thought of the ending of life bring you to shudder and quake inside? Have you ever questioned death? What it is? Not what you have been told it is. Not any information to be found in a book, or from any religion, or from anyone else. Have you ever looked at death as a part of life? Because this is what death truly is. We have been educated to see death as the ending of our lives. This view places death in opposition to life, as a great destroyer of it, the enemy of what we have enjoyed, the daily living, building, relationships, and learning. If life is considered good, and death is the terminal point of life, then death must be bad. But is it truly so? And where did our ideologies of death, as being an opposing state to life, arise from? Like most other things, we have been educated to this view. And this view is more destructive to the quality of life than the fact of death could ever be. Because life and death are one and the same movement. The death of the human body is a naturally occurring event, as it is to every living body in this entire universe. Nowhere, ever, will a life form of any description be found which will not come to death. Nothing alive will never die, and nothing dead has never been alive. Life and death are as inseparable as day and night. But we rarely come to face any facts concerning death. We fear it, as we have been educated to, in our classrooms, by our so-called teachers and experts, and on our television screens. We tend to avoid thinking about our own demise, and we greatly suffer whenever anyone close to our lives comes to depart from the continuity of this one. Yet I wonder if all this suffering is necessary, if it has any basis in any fact at all. To understand death, we must come to investigate what we have come to call life, because our death is an important part of our lives. As we live it today, our life is a movement in memory. Thinking is memory. This movement was designed and programmed into us during our young, mandated many school years. Think back to when you had to study, week after week, month after month, year after year, always in a constant repetitive state of forever memorizing, gathering knowledge to be later regurgitated to pass ongoing tests. The human brain forms a patterned way of living when exposed to a constant state of repetition. Having your mind forcefully concentrated on memorizing when very young maintains that movement within us as we move into our added years and onto our communal road to our final destination of physical death. Our programmed repetitive movement of inner thinking, of living in memory, seeking to become something in a conceptual future state, building always upon past actions, is the pattern educated into our brain cells when very young. And this is the pattern which remains functioning in the minds of every adult unfortunate enough to have been subjugated to approach life through such a pointless way of living. And the vast majority of us are in this position. Our lives today are lived in the past. You most likely see yourself as living as an unseen thinker of thoughts, a permanent psychological entity, constantly operating within the area of thinking itself. This is totally illusory. But do not take my word for this. It needs investigated to be seen. School really confuses and distorts our life. In time, we come to see ourselves as a movement within thinking. We are a permanent something. That something which passes all those tests. And this sense of psychological permanence grows in life, always pursuing the same psychological movement of finding purpose in becoming more than it previously was. In time, this movement becomes our society, our bankers, our politicians, our CEOs, and our leaders, and of course, the common man. In time, this movement becomes you and me, and everyone else you see. And yet it remains nothing more than a complete psychological illusion, and a dangerous one to the true quality of life. And even now, at this 12th hour for mankind, the true possibility of any continuity to his life existence. The psychological thinker of thoughts, educated into us all during school years, is a concept in a land of concept. This is the voice of all accumulated knowledge within the brain cells. And as knowledge is secreted from experiences past, this voice is the movement of that which came before. You are living as an educated concept. And the foundations of this concept are built on limited knowledge, which is the movement of our thinking. It is this inner movement which separates itself from death and sees death as an enemy, as a flaw almost, in an otherwise desirable state of eternal continuity. For the programmed state of your brain cells is to continue and to become. To end is hostile to becoming. Everyone wants to be something. Rare is the man who seeks to be nothing at all. But is living as a conceptual movement within the structure of educated and programmed brain cells, existing and acting within the limitation of what has been remembered, set now in experience-based knowledge within the brain cells, truly anything we can ever call living? This movement is living in the past movements of memory. Watch carefully and verify these words. Never accept a single thing. Truths of life only have any value when you see them with your own eyes. Accepting the words of another has no value at all. Yet if we can bring ourselves to watch with interest our inner movements of what we have come to call our living state, we shall come to understand that death is no enemy at all. Death is a natural event to all life. And the death of what came before is what opens the door into a new quality of creation. And that which continues in a never-ending state is only in a state of ongoing decay. It is only that which has ended which comes to meet the delight of death. And truly, when death is found, another kind of living will be found. As we live seeking the security of the continuity of what came before, we have built a societal system which functions this very way. Our society is divided, and wars between our allegiances to our differing pasts, which we gain security within. Our need to continue has grown a top-heavy tier of dominating powerful men, whose existence creates so many problems for the lives of others, either not so interested in the capitalist structure of constantly gathering numbers, or perhaps wise enough to see no sense in doing so. There is great beauty in death and rebirth. Life and death are actually two words for the same movement. For as true life lives, it dies. Life does not build from the past into a conceptual future. Only the programmed and conditioned brain cells of educated men and women insist on finding their security through such an insistence. Jesus Christ apparently stated that unless a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Why? Is the death Christ talked of the death of this inner, educated, conceptual self? is heaven in front of our eyes this very moment, yet undetectable to us, who now live forever within educated time, building progressively into a conceptual future from a past now dead and over. The Bible also tells us we were removed from the Garden of Eden because we ate from the fruit of knowledge. Knowledge is the past. Memory is the past. Living within the structure and continuity of thinking is to live in the past. This is to live within knowledge. This is the movement which removed us from the Garden of Eden. If we can investigate the conditioning movements we now live within and come to understand completely our inner functioning of educated psychological experience, if we can bring this movement to an end, we shall find that we come to meet a death. The death of the conceptual self we all carry, that talking voice inside your head. And in the death of this past, a door may open into a new kind of existence. One where no inner self resides, and so nothing psychologically remains to fear death. Death is not the enemy to mankind. Death is the liberator for mankind. For when the past movements which yet remain non-understood have been seen and gone beyond and ended, then life itself becomes death. The very same movement, for no inner feeling of continuity shall remain. And in such living with death is found the true approach and relationship to all life in this present moment, which is the only time the beauty and the joy and love so common to true life can ever be met. The birth of any new society demands the death of the movement of the old. The movement of our old society, now so corrupted and broken, is a one-sided affair, deeply self-interested, and has been built out of the divided thinking brain cells of humanity, living and acting in past movements of separated experiential memory-based thinking. To meet death, we must end what came before, not move positively ever towards it, which is merely a modified continuity. Can you end the movement of automatic thinking within? If you can, you will surely come to meet death in your life. And when you do, you will understand at that moment that far from being something to fear, death is the truest, most wondrous, and most valuable of all discoveries.